everyone. Welcome to the React Native Show podcast. This is a coffee talk, and today I have three great guests with me. One is on site, two are doing it remotely, but we will do it so that it's great. With me here is Janek. Janek?
Hello, I'm Jan. I'm a developer at CallStack.
Awesome. The next guy on my list is Burak.
Yeah, I'm Burak. I'm also a developer at CallStack, and I also help maintain the community library that's called React Native Builder Pub.
Awesome. And one more guest on my list is Lucas.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lucas, React Native developer, CallStack, and currently working on the Expensify open source project.
Awesome. So basically today we are here to discuss one very important topic, important in the community of developers, and it is going to be about Vim. So if you're a developer, you have probably faced Vim at least once in your life, and you probably hated the experience straight out of the box. I mean, let's not lie. Let's be honest with this. We all did that. We had to quit it at some point, and we didn't know how. We felt like in trap. But we're gonna get back to this part. So this coffee talk is Vim from zero to hero, and I have these specific guests, because I am the zero here. I am the guy who doesn't really use Vim on my daily routine. I'm trying to, I'm learning, but it's still a nightmare for me. It's still difficult. And other guys here, they are better than me, right? So Janek, how would you rate your experience right now with Vim? How do you feel like?
I feel like I'm on the intermediate level.
Okay.
I don't use it full time. I use it from time to time for like smaller projects, writing scripts.
Okay.
But I'm aspiring to get better at it.
Sick. All right. And our heroes here. So Burak and Lucas, you have been titled heroes of Vim today. Do you feel like it?
Yeah, I've been using it full time for the last year, and I feel proficient at them. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I've been using Vim for a couple of years now. I don't remember how much, but I would say 4 years. So
Okay.
like fully using Vim. I was trying Vim, now and then before that.
Do you put it in your resume?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
I think it's worth it.
You should. The first point.
By the way, I use Vim, right? That's the first point on your resume. Yeah. Maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, right. So yeah,
All right.
But would I call myself a hero, a Christian guy? I don't know. It's like it's an endless journey, I guess. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's
The
fair.
hero who's always fighting new monsters.
Oh, that's
yeah, I guess
nice.
so. Yeah.
right on point. All right, boys. So just in case there is someone listening or watching to us, and this person doesn't know what the Vim is, what is Vim? Can someone please explain in short what is Vim? What would you say? Maybe Burak. How do you feel like?
Yeah, so I think we can divide Vim into two parts. One is the Vim motion, and the other one is the Vim program itself. So the Vim
Okay.
motion is basically the keys of Vim. Like you can go to the left by pressing on H, L, J, K. These are the basic movement keys. So instead of using the arrow keys, you use those keys to navigate around the code. And the reason for that is like your fingers are normally sitting in the home row, and those keys are part of the home row. So it's easier to use those keys. And there are also other keys. And this is basically the Vim motion.
Okay.
There's the Vim program itself. It's basically a command line program. It's a text editor, and it uses the Vim key bindings.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good enough. So basically with Vim, you can edit text. And whether it's code or notes or you're writing a book, you can use Vim, right? And I think one important thing for people who don't use Vim, you need to know that in Vim, you don't use your mouse at all. Like it's not possible, basically. So, you can basically unplug it and just get going with your keyboard.
You can use your mouse if you want, really,
Right.
but it's not encouraged. It's not like the book says.
Okay. And I think that in Vim, it is important to do as the book says, right? It's pretty strict on how you should use Vim.
It's not like you're getting, Spanish Inquisition in your back if you don't, go by the book. But yeah, it's encouraged because it's much more efficient, I guess, that way.
Mhm.
Now, yeah.
Okay.
I think like when you get for like this first point of the struggling with the emotions, and you basically do a combo like in Mortal Kombat, it feels great that it basically you don't have to like focus on it, and you achieve something so effortlessly.
Okay. So if you're doing combos in Vim, you should get like sparkles and fireworks around, right? Like in Mortal Kombat.
There's
Hey,
probably
that's a good idea.
Well, that's an idea for you guys to maybe work on some open source like this. That should be fun. All right. So I got a question, because apart from Vim, there is also something called NeoVim, right? So what the hell is NeoVim?
Yeah, NeoVim is basically a hard fork of Vim. So Vim was created by this guy, Ram Molenaar. He was from Netherlands, and he actually died very recently, a couple of days ago. So yeah, big kudos to him. He was the author of Vim, and he basically also forked a previous project, which was VI. And he improved on that and created this whole ecosystem upon which, and the whole actually language upon which the Vim basically runs, which is VimScript. And NeoVim is a fork of Vim, which is basically the Vim is rewritten in a way that can run synchronously, can be extended in a much more broader way, more with modern languages, and it also uses Lua as its primary scripting language instead of VimScript, which is more approachable, and I guess Lua is more a sane language, I would say, because VimScript is a bit fiddly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And you said that Vim been created by Bram, and yeah, rest in peace, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's worth mentioning that Vim was created, like 30 years ago or something like that, like the first version.
Yeah.
I think it's quite old, and it gives you this old school vibe when you first get into it, without any extensions, configs, anything, just straight out of the box.
Yeah. Well, it's basically Vim is based on VI, and VI is based on something even previous to VI, and so the origins are actually from the 70s. So it's very, very old, and it wasn't even a text editor, it was a command interface like CLI to enable text editing on like remote servers, which was all like mainframes, right? So you would connect to it from a teletype, right? And you could edit text from a teletype, which is it's that old, right? And it was improved since then. So yeah, it has a very, very long history.
Okay, but that makes sense. It makes me think that even nowadays it's the tool that you would use in this specific case, like in most cases. Like if you connect to your server and you need to edit something, you're probably gonna launch Vim because you're in a command line, and this is the most common thing to use in this case. All right. So guys, I have a question. It's a personal one, so I want to listen to each one of you. So what basically made you try Vim out for the first time, and how was it at the beginning? Everyone has a different experience with that. So Yannick, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I think the first one was probably by accident, doing like a git commit or something and then trying to exit. But my first serious one was after watching probably some YouTube videos. I don't remember exactly which one was it, but I watched quite a lot of Luke Smith videos, and he showed really interesting ways on using Vim and being productive with it. And then I started watching other YouTubers, reading about it, and trying to basically use it more and more, learning the motions. And after that, when I got more confident, I try to use it more and more.
Okay, all right. Burak?
Yeah, so I was in the high school, and I got into coding, and I was coding Python actually. And I was doing all of this coding in my mobile phone. It was an Android, and there was a program called Tmux. It was basically a terminal, and it installed some kind of Linux distro in your phone, and yeah, you were able to use it. So I didn't have any other like alternatives when it came to editing the code. So I grabbed the Vim and installed some extensions. And there was a website called Real Python, and they had a Python guide for Vim. So I just followed it, and yeah, I started using Vim with my mobile phone, and then I dropped it after a while. Like that was really weird for me. Then I recently grabbed it back, and now I'm doing it full time.
Bro, you were learning to code at high school on your phone, and you were using Vim. What the hell is going on?
That's like the most hacky history of Vim I've ever heard.
Yeah, man. But it proves that, well, there are no excuses, man. Just grab your phone and start doing it.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice. Look, what about you?
Yeah, I saw this meme on the internet that when you use Vim, you're a Chad, and that's why I started to use Vim. No, but seriously, I mean, I was always into keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that, and automating stuff, and I really like that as long as I remember. And all the code editors I used, they had some keyboard shortcuts, and you could kind of customize it, but it wasn't the best thing. So I was looking for a better solution, and I was also changing keyboards to be so they're more comfortable and easier to use. And I just had to one day just use Vim, just try this approach, this mobile approach, and I was in love instantly, even though it was very, very hard. I thought, yeah, this is it. This is the approach that's going to bear really, great fruits in the future. So yeah, I dive in and never turn back.
All right. And how was it at the beginning for you? Like when you first few days when you started, did you feel like, oh, this is what I love, I'm going to do this forever? Or was it?
No, obviously not. It was horrible. Yeah. I started with Vim and quickly realized that, oh man, this is not good. This is I mean, I still had to work. I had to do my daily tasks, and it slowed me down very, very rapidly. So yeah, I moved back to VS Code, and got to know from Google there's an extension for VS Code. So I switched to the extension, and I started to learn Vim motions from there. But still, you lose this modality, system wide in VS Code when you use just the extension, so just the plugin. So I started to use Vim at least 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. Just to create this muscle memory for those key bindings, and gradually moved to pure Vim as time progressed. Yeah.
Okay, and that reminds me that Yannick, you mentioned that you use Vim, or you used Vim for taking notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right?
So I guess I'm at the stage that Luke mentioned, that I'm using it from time to time. I'm now familiar and confident with enough emotions that I don't feel super slow, but I still feel like there are gaps, or maybe I don't have everything configured, whether it's plugins or configs. So it's not good enough for me to replace it full time and in my daily job.
Right.
But yeah, I'm moving towards that goal.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then when it comes to me, I have a very short experience with Vim, honestly, few months only, and I'm at this stage where I also am using the extension for VS Code and trying to get used to modes. I've hidden my tabs in VS Code, and I'm using the Control Tab combo just to switch between files and stuff like that. So I'm at this point where I'm just getting comfortable with not seeing my tabs and also learning motions. But yeah, we're gonna get to this part yet. All right. So when we are talking about using Vim over other tools, right? So what it gives you? What do you like most about using Vim over using other tools like VS Code or WebStorm or whatever it is for you?
So maybe let me start.
Yeah.
For me, I guess it's speed. It opens very quickly. You don't have to wait for it. it also doesn't take a lot of resources. So as Burak mentioned, you can even use it on mobile. And with like
That's
other
crazy.
editors, then my main editor now is WebStorm. It's great. It has a lot of features, but it's slow. It takes quite a long time to load.
Maybe too many features, right?
Yeah, in some ways that's true. And also you mentioned that when you connect to some remote server via SSH, those Linux distros also have Vim. So you can be productive in like many situations.
Right. Yeah. Guys, do you have other opinions on that?
Yeah, I what I can do is just say big yes to this, right? So it's fast, right? It's much faster. That was actually one of the reasons I moved to Vim. It's because VS Code got this resource hog with time, especially when you install many plugins. Then it's getting very, very slow. So yeah, that was one of those things, but also efficiency, right? So that's what I said. You can be really fast, and I guess it's a little bit like playing an instrument, right? When you're playing a guitar or a piano or something like that, what you want to do is to become a master of it, right? To express yourself, right? All the emotions and stuff like that for music, and because I have a musical background too, this is it was kind of natural for me that I want to be a master of this tool I'm using, which is a text editor, right? And it was quite natural for me that you could use key bindings for it, and if you master them, if it becomes your second nature, you can be very quick at what you do. You don't have to think about it, right? So yeah, that was my main driving force for that.
So key bindings are like chords on a piano or something like that, right?
Yeah. It's like using an instrument. You want to be, when a guitarist, plays, he wants to, show you all the licks, all the great things he knows, right? To mesmerize you, right? And it's like the same thing with coding, right? You want to do something as efficiently as it's possible, and I don't think it's possible with a traditional editor. I think this modality, this modal concept is the key to it.
By the way, you are talking about this concept. Like, can you briefly explain what it is about? Like, what are these modes in Vim?
Yes, I mean, yeah. So Vim is a modal editor, which means that it runs in a couple of modes. The moment you start Vim, it starts in normal mode, which is very confusing for beginners, right? Because you cannot actually type anything. If you type something, there's usually nothing showing up on your screen, or some gibberish.
Right.
Yeah, but and if you want to start editing your file or entering the text, you need to enter the insert mode, which is the mode that you can actually type in. But if you want to, do something with your text, delete words, lines, sentences, parse it, go search for something, you have to exit the insert mode and go to the normal mode. There's also command mode, there's visual mode, visual block mode. So yeah, these are the modes you can switch through. And this is nice because you can have, you basically cannot run out of key bindings because there are key bindings for every mode.
Right. Yeah. And just a disclaimer, so this is the biggest difference of Vim versus other code editors, that you have these modes. And just to highlight what it gives you as a user is that, for example, when you're using VS Code or WebStorm or whatever, you have just one mode. You're in one mode and you have all your key bindings set there. So because of that, some of these key bindings become very complex. Like you have to use 3, maybe sometimes you have 4 keys at the same time to do something. And because Vim has these modes, you have, for example, the same key binding, but it does this different thing in a visual mode and different thing in an insert mode, let's say, right? So that is the biggest difference here, and that's what you need to get used to that. And for me, it was a struggle to get used to the visual mode when I wanted to highlight something. And, I'm used to doing this with the mouse. So when I had to switch to visual mode and then highlight something, copy that, switch the mode, that was a struggle for me. But I'm getting better at this. It is becoming my second nature now. Burak, I have a question for you. For all of you, but you can start. So what downsides of using Vim do you see, comparing to other editors?
Okay, so like the most obvious answer is a steep learning curve. So if you want to get into using Vim, there is a good amount of learning that's waiting for you. And so you have to find some good resources to get started with. And then I think it might be time consuming for you to do a proper setup. So when you first start up the Vim, there is nothing for you. Like I think you can still edit code, but it won't highlight the different parts of the code for you, or you cannot do complex actions like rename, or you can jump to definitions of symbols, let's say, and you have to set up the proper extensions for that. Like these two are generally done, like these require some manual labor that you need to do, and they can be time consuming for you. And like one other downside I can tell is the live code extension that's in the VS Code. I used to use that a lot to jump into pair programming sessions with my colleagues, and now I don't have that. Like if I want to do any kind of pair programming, I have to use Tmux, and obviously the other person has to use Tmux as well. These are the downsides that come to my mind.
All right. Basically, for people who don't know these tools, they are basically like screen sharing, but they allow you to edit the code at the same time with other people remotely, right? Yeah. All right. Any other downsides you guys can
maybe just to add to the steep learning curve. So as Lucas mentioned, using Vim is similar to playing on like a guitar. So when people are learning at the beginning, it's very hard to maybe get into the flow and hit the right chords,
and your fingers hurt, right?
Yeah, but after some time, then you get into the flow state, and it's very satisfying. So so practicing at the beginning the basic stuff and not trying to learn everything, I think is a very good approach. And then when you get like familiar and confident with the basic stuff, you add additional movements, and this way you progress in like a good way, I would say.
Yeah, I can agree with you for sure. All right. So as we mentioned, like we all work with React or React Native. Some of us work with open source as well. So guys, do you have any tips or tricks for people working with React Native or open source, and they're using Vim? Like, do you have any specific workflows or any specific configs, or how does it look like for you?
So like for starters, a good amount of open source is also editing documentation, and most of the documentation comes with the Markdown format. And I think this is where Vim can really shine, because there are really good extensions for Vim. For example, you got Grammarly, you got Hunter Markdown. Like these are all good extensions that just make it easier for you. Other than that, if you are also using Tmux, it's easier to jump between different projects. And this is extremely useful for someone like me who is working on a project that's about creating other projects. So what I do is I create a project using the tool, and then I quickly jump to that project using Tmux. And obviously you can't use Tmux with something like VS Code or IntelliJ IDEs. So it's really helpful when it comes to this.
Okay. All right. Any other remarks?
Yeah, I mean, well, I can just add to that, using Vim with Tmux, which is just like another huge topic, is just a great experience if you already have maybe not mastered but are familiar with Vim. Then it's highly what can I say? I mean, if you can add Tmux to it, then your experience will be much better, because you can switch through windows and you can switch between projects very quickly, and it all really works very well together. So that's great.
It might sound funny for people who are daily using some IDEs, like, oh my god, you can switch files, you can switch projects, that's amazing. But guys, if you want the power of Vim, so you're gonna have to use Vim. And this, like switching files and switching projects, it doesn't come out of the box with Vim, right? So you're gonna appreciate something that adds this, right?
Yeah, and when it comes to specifically to React or React Native, I mean the flow, it really doesn't differ that much from other editors. I mean, you open a project, you work on it, and that's all. What's maybe a little bit difficult that it's actually having a debugger inside your editor. So with React.js, with React DOM, it's absolutely possible. You can have it, and maybe it's a bit complicated to configure, but there are already pre-configured distros of Vim, so you can use that, and there's debugger, out of the box. Working, and it actually there's some interoperability between VS Code configuration and those debuggers. So you can actually import your VS Code config, DAB config, and it should be good.
Cool.
But when it comes down to React Native, well, the experience maybe it's not the best. But recently Expo created this VS Code plugin for debugging React Native projects, especially using Hermes. And there's some hope that someone, maybe you, I don't know, someone will port this plugin to Vim, and we'll be very happy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, one thing that I found a little bit, maybe not difficult, but a little bit strange when using Vim, I think, because I'm not using it daily, as I mentioned, but if you have your own config and you configure it your own way, it looks the way you like it, you have your own bindings and stuff like that, it might be a little difficult when you want to do stuff on somebody else's like Mac or PC, because they might have their own config, or they maybe don't have anything because they don't use Vim and it's just plain Vim, right? So, when you have VS Code and everybody's using VS Code, it's most likely that they have basically default bindings and everything works as you expect it to work. So that's one thing I was concerned about when thinking about it. But yet, how often does it happen that you code on somebody else's machine, right? So that's the thing.
I don't know. I've never coded.
I can also jump in here, because you can have your custom keys, but Vim has a pretty large defined key set that you don't want to touch. If you want to jump to a letter in the same line, you just press F, and I think it's universal for every Vim user. Let's say you want to work on somebody else's computer. If they have Vim, or if they have the Vim extension, it shouldn't affect you so much, because the core keys are the same.
Yeah. At least they should be, right? At least they should be.
And one other thing it has is, let's say if you are editing Android files, you need to use Android Studio. If you are on iOS, you need to use Xcode. And to me, Xcode is a horrible editing performance, when it comes to the core editing features. So, but there is actually a Vim mode in Xcode that is just a lifesaver for me, let's say.
All right, cool. I think there's Vim extension for every bigger IDE or code editor in it.
But for me, from my experience,
closer to the mic.
Yeah.
All right.
And I tried using a Vim mode in other editors, but then I stumbled upon maybe some weird shortcut configs. So I wasn't sold on that idea. So I'm trying to use the default Vim in CLI.
Okay. Yeah. So you're going the hardcore way. Nice.
It's with Vim, it's Vim is like a toothbrush. You don't borrow it. Right? It's yours. So it's just nobody borrows a toothbrush, right?
I mean, well, we've been in different situations. Let's not talk about it.
Okay, sure, yeah.
No, but you don't want to do that. In general, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I love this idea. I love it. All right, guys. So is there anything something really awesome that you can do in Vim, but you definitely cannot do in any other editor? Anything that you can point out?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's awesome in Vim, but if but if you want to think about it more deeply, I guess where Vim is really, really powerful. It's extensibility, and it's command mode, and you can pass many files. I mean, the whole project with macros and very complex regex patterns and stuff like that. So you can do like bulk operations on thousands of files very, very quickly, and it's very, very hard to do in other editors. You have like global search and replace, but this is just nothing against Vim, right? Because not only you can do global search and replace, but you can also do global search and macros on every individual file, which is very, very complex, right? You can do crazy stuff that's not possible in other editors, I guess.
Yeah,
and the whole concept of modality, right? This is the key feature, right? This is why Vim is Vim.
Okay, yeah, that I agree 100%. Yeah,
and I'll also add the thing that I said earlier. Like VS Code doesn't have a global key binding set that's available in Xcode, like let's say. So if you know Vim, you can use it on everywhere.
Yeah,
on Xcode, Android Studio, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish my life would come down to just Vim motions. I mean, it would be just like super easy to navigate life if it was just with Vim motions. But unfortunately, it doesn't have it.
Quick note: he's using Vim for 4+ years. This is what you're gonna sound like when you do the same.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really funny, but once you are very accustomed to Vim motions, you want to have them everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. I use a Git client that has Vim motions. I use I even use a spreadsheet editor that has Vim motions inside.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to have them absolutely everywhere. I use browser extensions that use Vim motions. Wow. So that's you want to have them everywhere because this becomes your second nature. You have your hands on your home row all the time, and you just want to make it stay there. Right. So
but that shows you how committed the community of Vim is. That there are so many extensions, plugins, and stuff as you just mentioned that just supports these. Right. I mean, who else would program that? Just the Vim user.
So on Twitter, you can also use Vim motions, the basic ones, but you have the feed. You can use JK to jump between different tweets, and you can use other shortcuts for other stuff. So a lot of pages that have it allow you to do it, and I use it all the time, and I'm not even thinking. And then I go to a different site and I try to use it, and I see that it's not possible, and it's a bummer.
Sick.
Yeah, exactly.
So Vim is everywhere. You just don't know about it. I mean, you guys know, but we, the mortals, we don't know. All right. One note from me. I have something that is awesome in Vim, and I didn't find it in any other editor, but I didn't search, to be honest. But the operators that you use in Vim. So for example, my favorite one is if you want to change something inside of, let's say, brackets, or inside of how do you say that? Inside of columns, for example, right? So then you're gonna do the combo of CI and then CI, and then you put the character in between which you want to do the change. This is really awesome. And like, for example, you want to completely change the definition of your function, right? You're just gonna hit CI and then opening bracket, and it's gonna basically clear out all the function for you, and it's gonna enter the insert mode. This is something, when I learned about it, I was like, man, this is so efficient. I mean, how often did I have to either highlight with my mouse this whole part of text that is in between something, and then delete that and start typing? And here, when you get used to that, it's just a matter of 1 second or even less. Just do the quick combo.
Yeah, and there are dozens of that kind of gems inside of it.
Yeah, so that's from me, and I'm a noob. So anyone listening to that, take that into your heart, because this is really awesome feature.
Yeah.
All right. So there must be a very common question, because when we were talking offline, Burak, you mentioned that you really like Vim because it makes you more efficient, right? And I think you guys also mentioned that while we are recording this, that it just gives you this speed, this efficiency. So, how does it make you more efficient? Some people might be wondering, like, how is it more efficient to use shortcuts and stuff like that when I could just use my mouse, jump from place to place in the code, switch tabs in my fancy IDE? How does it make you more efficient?
Okay, so for starters, you don't have to lift your fingers up the keyboard very often as you do. Like if you don't use mouse, then your fingers are always on the home row. And if you're also using Vim, everything is on the home row. And what is the home row, you might ask? It's the ASDFGH. Like that's called the home row.
Yeah.
And if your fingers are on the home row very often, you're gonna be faster because, like, let's say you want to select something. Now you just lift your fingers and go to the mouse, select it, come back, do whatever you want to do. Let's say you want to click it, you hit Command C.
Yeah.
And on Vim, you just select it using your keyboard. Let's say you press on V to enter the visual mode, so you can select it, and you hit Y to copy it, and you don't have to move your hands as much as you do if you were to use a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing is you are always closer to the command line. So let's say you are developing a React Native application and you want to see the metro, right? Or you want to reload the app or hit on D to open the debugger. So because you are always in a terminal, your metro always lives by you. So, and also if you are using the Tmux, you can always hit to your metro and do whatever you want to do in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
And these two are some examples how it increases the efficiency. Other than that, it's tailored to you. So you will always have only what you need. Yeah. So there's no unnecessary things that's going on for you in the Vim.
Right.
Yeah.
So
well said.
Yeah. So like you, Yannick, you mentioned that you, for your daily work, you use WebStorm, right? And it is pretty heavy because it has so many features. So I suppose if you get used to using Vim, it's just more efficient also because of the start time.
Yeah.
Right. And
sometimes even if something feels like fluid and smooth, then you move to Vim and it blows you away how faster it can be. And then when you get into the flow, that you just switch between files, jump in between, and as you said, you want to remove some part of the code or some text in the line, and you when you do it like even without thinking, you just automatically press like key shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
It feels awesome.
Okay.
It's also less distracting. Like for programmers, it's important to have this state of flow, and I think Vim makes it possible in some ways.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I can add on top of that. I can add that for me, for example, when I'm working with a code that has many files, big code base. When I'm kind of a lazy person, so when I'm working with IDE, I don't really rely on remembering, let's say, names of files in which I do changes and stuff like that. I just look at my tabs, which are open, and they are somehow marked that I did some change in there and stuff like that. And I basically jump through them looking for what I need to find. And because in Vim you don't really see tabs, and if you want to switch to different file, you should basically open up like let's say like a search input and just type in the name of the file and open it up. That kind of forces me to pay more attention to files I'm editing, like the names of them, like where I am in the code right now. And honestly, that makes me more efficient within the project because that helps me navigate through the project better. After some time, of course, you need to get used to that, in my case. But that's just a personal disclaimer because I would never expect something like this, like taking away those tabs gives me more efficiency in the project, but it did. It actually did. So it's a funny thing. All right, guys. So how to get started with Vim? Like if you were to give a recommendation to people who want to give it a try, but they don't know where to start, which kind of distro they should pick, or should they pick any kind of distro? What would you say? Yannick, how do you think?
I'm in like the middle state. I try to like set it up from scratch, but usually when I start, I get distracted by something else, or try to get stuck on something and move on, and then come back to 2 weeks later, and I don't remember what I was doing.
Scratch.
Yes, start from scratch.
Yes.
So this is for me maybe a blocker. And I heard that there is like the Vim distros like Astro Vim or Lunar Vim come pre-configured, and they include a lot of stuff. But for me, like I wanted maybe to understand what's going on under the hood, and also I wasn't sure if I like the key bindings that they propose the best. So, but on the other hand, doing setting up the key binding myself is also like complicated. So I'm in between and not really sure which way to go.
Okay. So any more experienced people want to say something about it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no really good or bad way to start. I mean, it really comes down to your personal preferences. But I would say if you're interested in Vim, then just learn the Vim motions first. That's probably the easiest thing. So if you can install like we said earlier, a plugin to VS Code or any other editor, then yeah, try those basic Vim motions and see if they suit you. If yes, then I guess going like we said earlier, configuring Vim from scratch can be a little bit complicated and overwhelming at first sight. So yeah, going with a pre-configured distro like Lunar Vim, NVChad, Astro Vim, right? I think it's a good way to go. And once you're not satisfied with them, then you can start configuring it yourself. And if you're more you're more adventurous, then there's a good project. You can. It's not a distro, but it's like a first very basic configuration that you can get you started with configuring Vim. It's called kickstart.nvim. Yeah, simple to use, very 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 basic, very bare bones, but you can start from that. And there's already some LSP config, which is probably one of the hardest things to configure in Vim because it's complicated. Yeah, right. LSP stands for Language Server Protocol, right? So
okay,
you want to have that in your IDE.
Yeah, and with the power of the LSP, you can also install VS Code plugins. I mean, the LSP is actually introduced by VS Code, as far as I know.
Yeah,
and it's basically renaming your symbols, going to definitions of your symbols. That's all the job of the LSP. And like if VS Code has a good LSP for TypeScript that you like, let's say if you are renaming something on VS Code on a TypeScript file and it's doing it job good, and if you like it, you will have the same experience on VS Code. So you won't have any worse experience than VS Code.
All right.
It's exactly the same engine.
Yeah, and the same actually goes for the debuggers. So for the debuggers, there is a protocol called DAP, and it stands for the Debug Adapter Protocol, and it's also introduced by VS Code. So whichever debugger you have on VS Code, you will also have on Vim.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. And from my side, I can give you a fresh opinion because I'm just doing it right now. So what I did is I did get the VS Code extension. So it's basically called Vim. And it allows you to do all the motions and stuff like that, play with modes. But also one more extension that is really cool. I think it's called basically Learn Vim. And what it does, within your VS Code, it opens up two tabs. One is let's say an article. I think this is the website that is opened within your VS Code. And it has chapters explaining different parts of Vim. And then in the other tab, you have a text editor with some text already in it. And you can play around with what you're just learning in an article. You can put it in a practice on that text. And it's like a little bit like game. So basically it gives you like an ASCII, it gives you a little labyrinth, and it tells you, try to navigate with motions through the labyrinth and just get to the end, or try to delete this character from this massive piece of text, right? And use as few combinations of keys as possible, and it gives you this kind of playground to play with, so you don't have to jump right into the code or whatever. You can play with it this way as well. All right, guys. So maybe for the end, do you have any sources to recommend, like any YouTubers, any podcasts, any books, or anything like that?
Yeah, so from me, I think Looksmith is a great option. Also, PrimeGen, one built-in tutorial way to learning Vim is Vim Tutor. So and there are also games on the internet where you can just learn basic motions in a game. So it's cool. Fun and educational.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I really recommend the PrimeGen.
Yeah, PrimeGen. Yeah, that's a good channel. TJ, one of the maintainers of NeoVim. Yeah, also great tutorials on LSP and stuff like that. The creator of LunarVim, I don't remember his name, Chris something.
You can Google that.
Yeah. Just go to LunarVim, and this guy is the main guy behind it. So just open his YouTube channel. Also great tutorials, and Vim Tutor. That if you go through this, you will have the basics of Vim in no time. And also, like Yannick said, there are some great games online if you're into that, like Vim Adventures. There was one that I call that. Right. So you can try that. And sounds fun. It's very fun. It's fun. And obviously, the book of Vim, the Bible of Vim. Whenever you're lost and need some help, just type ;help in Vim, and you'll find absolutely everything. It's been redacted for 30 years, and it's growing. So yeah, it's a huge source.
It's a good book for sleeping. All right, guys. So we are reaching the end. So let's just close it by answering the one and only question: how do I quit Vim?
No, you don't exit Vim.
All right, Vim or die. But I think the answer is just go to Stack Overflow and find it yourself. All right, guys, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope we did encourage some people to give it a try. And yeah, we're gonna put links to those nice YouTube channels and people that you should follow regarding Vim in the description. And yeah, well, have a good coffee and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.